West Ham are going to need a massive rebuild or a huge overhaul or not much at all, depending on which angle you're going to look at. We've been asking over the past few days for you lot to help us out and give us topics to discuss over this international break. Been quite overwhelmed by the number of suggestions, actually. So we've got to thank you very, very much for that. This one, as I said at the start of the video, it's not just a squad rebuild. It's actually out of contract players. What was the nature of this suggestion, please, Geo?
Well, Phil got in touch, and I'm intrigued to read our subscribers' comments in regards to this, because I think some people they're not bothered whatsoever, and there's some people that are slightly panicking and everything in between. But Phil said, I've been thinking we're going to need half a squad in the summer, not just a rebuild and all of that against a backdrop of PSR/FFP. We went into January with one space in the squad that had been held for Jesse Lingard, Cresswell, Ogbonna, and possibly Fabianski will leave or retire. We'll let Coventry, Kerr, Fornals and Benrahma go in January. It looks probable that Johnson and Mubama will leave. Calvin Phillips will return to Manchester City. It seems inevitable that Paqueta will go, and now Aguerd wants to leave. And there has to be question marks over Danny Ings and Mikel Antonio. So we've been allowed to get into this state by a combination of an aging squad, huge losses on players, and Moyes' reluctance to show a path to the youngsters. He's going to be hiding behind the sofa in the summer. And it will be worse still if we're not off to a quick start in the window or agonise about David Moyes' replacement or contract deep into the transfer window. Frankly, I'm bricking it. Phil.
Thanks, Phil. Sorry about you bricking it. I hope you've got a big sofa, by the way. Every time I thought you were going to stop talking, you carried on talking, and that list just got longer and longer. And it's hard to really make a case. I think you've got to be overly argumentative to make a case that all of those or any of those are going to stay. I mean, it's hard. I think some can. I think possibly the situation with Ben Johnson is not beyond repair. I think we spoke, recorded during our marathon stint of recording videos. We've discussed Tilo Kehrer at some point during the day. Watch which video it was. I couldn't remember. You can make a case for one or two. But there's a big, big exodus happening. And I think it is a concern. And it's funny, actually, because ordinarily you could look at things like this and see them as opportunity. And it's just funny what a fine line there is there, because I honestly, we've discussed this already before in the past couple of weeks, Geo, on the transfer when we were dissecting the transfer window. I felt we were only 2 players away from being able to finish high, wherever we finish higher in the league. I honestly do feel either an attacking midfielder and a central midfielder or a left winger or forward or whatever. 2 players would have really, really pushed us up there. And we chose not to do it. So I thought we were close during this window to being a formidable team. But of course, Phil's not talking about the team. He's talking about the squad. And that is quite a rebuild. I'll be interested to see what Geo thinks about it. I think just before I get into that, it is clear I just can't see us bringing in that volume of players. I actually think it's probably going to have to be a combination of keeping some of those many names that you mentioned, 2 or 3 of the names you mentioned are going to have to be retained, signing 3 or 4 players, and actually using a couple from the academy as well. Did he mention Maxwell Cornet in the list?
No, he didn't. I think he forgot about him, just like David Moyes did.
Well, absolutely. What do you think?
Well, I think there's 1 or 2 things that it depends on, but what concerns me more is the homegrown aspect, which we're going to feature in a separate video, which will be on the other channel later on today. So the link to that video is in the description on your ends, because we will have already recorded it. I've actually got a list of the players that are going out of contract this summer that's currently in the first team at West Ham United. So we've got Joseph Anang and Divin Mubama. Vladimir Coufal's contract is currently due to expire, as is Aaron Cresswell's, Angelo Ogbonna's, Ben Johnson and Nathan Trott's. He's obviously out on loan at the minute, but his contract is due to expire. Now, according to Transfer Market, Mikel Antonio is on that list, which I don't believe to be true. I do believe the rumours at the start of the season that he's extended his contract already. And then Lucas Fabianski's had his Transfer Market have updated it to show that the club have triggered Lucas Fabianski's option in there, and he's actually until summer 25. So I think what it depends on for me is, do we have European football or not? Because that's a huge factor for A, the homegrown side of it, but also B, the size of squad. if we're not in European football, we do not need a massive squad. We don't need 25 senior players if we're not in European football. We just do not. And actually, I think it's a bad idea to have 25 senior squad players because you need that pathway for the youngsters. If you chock-a-block it full of players who are 30 years old, etc., it becomes impossible for them to get in. So if we're not in European football, I think it becomes an opportunity, which is, all right, okay, we can shed a few... Because some of these players that we just clicked on here, right? You know, Anang and Trot, we possibly need one of them, but there's also third choice goalkeepers in the squad that's capable at under 21 level. Ogbonna and Cresswell, well, with the greatest respect, Gonzo, I find it difficult to say they're going to be a miss. I haven't seen Ogbonna for God knows how long. Cresswell's only there when Emerson's unrequired, but it would either allow Scarles to come through. But out of that list, Coufal and Johnson are the two I look at and think, they've had a big part to play this season, so they would need replaced. And then obviously, Divin Mubama would feel like a loss, but he's not played. It's not like he's playing minutes. Is he a loss? Well, kind of, but also Callum Marshall then just gets promoted to sort of third choice striker, if you like. So I think it could become an opportunity. Am I worried? Yes, because I do not trust the club enough. But the players we've all been listing, Phil listed some of them. Some of them have already left. Benrahma, Fornals, Kerr, they've already gone.
Yeah.
Lingard was never part of this squad. So, yeah, I just don't trust the club enough. Is it a rebuild? I think it's a mini one. I do think it's a mini one. You know, Calvin Phillips technically needs replaced, although he's not actually a West Ham United player. So there's a lot of work to be done this summer. But when isn't there? I feel like we have this conversation every summer, and I'm getting a bit fed up of having this conversation, actually. But what that does do is it feeds into Phil's last point, which is, well, this is the result of an aging squad and lack of long-term planning, and that's where I think it becomes an opportunity.
Well, when we were recording a Paqueta interview, I bloody wish. When we were recording the Paqueta video earlier, you mentioned Emerson's age, and you said he's 30, and I guess I just not thought about it. I think I just sort of thought he was 27. I don't know why. It's not like a default. I automatically think everyone's 27.
You've gone and double checked his age, by the way.
Have I gone and checked it?
Yeah. No. You just assumed I'm right.
Of course I don't. Why would I not? But you know what? I sort of look at that and I think, well, hold on. It is an aging squad, but I do wonder if it's not just the people that are bloody obvious, like Cresswell and like Ogbonna. Actually, there's go on. What is it?
He's 29, but he's 30 before the season kicks off.
Well, yes, I'm not going to argue you on that. Yeah, I take it you're right. And I just think that there's other options, that there's other positions that probably need to be dealt with there. With that position, I like Scarles, and I think he should be brought through and something should be done. I think some of those on that list, Johnson, I would definitely try and retain. But in many respects, I think it's actually the others that are as much of a problem as anything else, because I think it's really hard to make a case. I think it would almost be like cruelty to Danny Ings to keep him for another season. There's probably some law against it or something like that. It just would not be fair on him. So I think it's very hard to make a case that he stays. Very hard to make a case that Ogbonna should get a new contract. Aguerd, if he's not off, making a lot of bloody noise about it, you know. Someone's kicking up a stink, and it certainly sounds like he is. And you know, and then there's things like Kurt Zouma. Is he off? No. Will he be offered a new deal? No. Can we rely on him for next season? No. You know, you could argue that another centre back is needed there as well, actually. And then we got the, you know, obviously you've got the Coufal thing going on as well. The Calvin Phillips one, I think, is really, really important because Edson Alvarez is always going to do this stuff, Gio. He's always going to get these bookings. So what I do think is really important, and you know, I alluded to it in a video that I made, will be a couple of days earlier than this when this video is published, but I really don't feel that David Moyes can be trusted with this overhaul at all. I'm really quite annoyed, actually, with some of the stuff that he's done, and the fact that the Phillips transfer has turned out in the way that it has. Now, you know what? He may well Phillips, and I hope he does, by the way. I hope he turns it around and actually has an absolutely remarkable 3 games. But it's to get Phillips in, and then actually, it's not really what I thought. I'm not going to use him at all. And I understand why he hasn't, and even to get Ward-Prowse over and all the rest of it, and then start fiddling around with not like that, start moving him, playing him on the left wing, and playing him in attacking midfield and stuff like that. Come on, mate, where's your clarity of purpose? Where is what are you doing? Why do you want these players, and why do you sort of keep not using them or misusing them? Or be it Cornet would be another one. We could sit here and make a number of examples. I think it's really, really important that actually it's somebody else as well as David Moyes that identifies the positions that we need. I used to think that maybe with a director of football, that David Moyes could say, actually, I need a right back, I need a central midfielder, I need this. So I used to, and then the director of football goes out and gets them. I'm not even sure I trust David Moyes to do that at the moment.
That's the ideal. That's the ideal method, but it's a very difficult one. I don't agree with the sort of the Karen Phillips and Moyes thing. I think Moyes did put him in from the start. It's just that he got sent off and gave away 2 goals, and then played crap against Burnley and got hooked at halftime. It's almost like I think Moyes did give him a chance. It's just been a hell of a lot worse than what I think most of us expected. But what we will do is move on to another question from someone else that kindly sent in. Jimmy. Jimmy said about discussing things over the international break. He said, a lot is spoken about centre forward and left wing, but there's a lot to address at centre back, with arguably 3 of the 4 current centre backs a question mark this summer. Without wanting to make this a Moyes thing, it feels as that if Moyes is here, Aguerd won't be. And if Moyes isn't here, there's possibly a question mark with Zouma. Added in Ogbonna's age and contract as well, obviously, and then you could add Casey to the mix as well. Also, with or without Europe will factor in due to difference in game time available. There's a lot going on. It feels whatever happens, there's going to be at least 2, maybe 3 new centre-backs required. So how will it be addressed? In my opinion, Jimmy, not mine, Jimmy's opinion, I like Aguerd, but in a high-line, high-press team. He currently feels like the centre-back version of Sebastian Haller, though some might say Felipe Anderson. If we did have a change, I would hope they could get him to stay, but that ship might have sailed. In my opinion, again, Jimmy's, not mine, you can only carry on at most 1 of Zouma and Ogbonna, and it would probably be neither, ideally, especially if we do get into European football. Realistically, I don't think we'll get 3 centre-backs in one window, so one of the centre-backs in question would need to stay, but keeping Zouma as, say, 4th choice won't make sense due to his wages. Sorry for the ramble, but I feel this could be the biggest challenge of the summer, potentially, for the squad.
Relevant points, Jimmy, and I'm glad you brought it up. Obviously, I've alluded. We'll get Geo's thoughts on this one. Yeah, because, I thought it was a pertinent question as well, and I didn't know that Jimmy's question was coming in there before. So I've already said what I've got to say about it. I've got Geo's opinion. But what I also just would add to that, which I haven't mentioned, there are very few players at West Ham we absolutely know that David Moyes went out and got with David Moyes' signings. There are few of them. But Nayef Aguerd is certainly one of those, in the same way that you would say that Zouma was certainly one of those. Dawson was certainly one of those. And I think we're suffering. Like, actually, Dawson, I think, as crazy as it sounds, he would have been playing pretty much all of this season. So it's another. And I know what you're saying, Jimmy, about not making it anti-Moyes, and I always try to. But we did when we did the Paqueta one. I was happy to praise Moyes, and we'll do so if he does does things right. But it does concern me that he chased this player for the length of time that he did, and it's not the first time that I've seen David Moyes chase a player, sign a player, and he's actually pretty much ill-suited to the way the manager wants to play. So that's a concern on who we might sign in the future.
I think in regards to Aguerd, though, I'm willing to say shrug it off. Maybe I'm being a bit too kind here, but when we signed Aguerd, we signed him this summer. We brought in Mark Warburton and senior members at West Ham, including the manager, captain, and the recently retired Mark Noble, all alluded to the fact that we're going to play a different way. There's going to be a transition. That was the key word. We're going to transition to a new style. I think it's fair to say that if that was true, and I'm still reluctant to buy into that because I didn't really see much transitioning going on. I felt it was a slightly different way of playing, but it wasn't like we came out with a completely new way of playing. But if we were, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because that many people were all saying the same thing. So I think there was an idea there or an intention. I think Nayef Aguerd would have been pivotal to that, bringing in this new type of centre-back, and then he got injured in pre-season at Ibrox. And by the time he came back post-World Cup, we were switching back to what we used to do because it wasn't working. Now, I'm not saying it didn't work because Aguerd was injured. What I'm saying is Aguerd never really, in my opinion, had a fair crack at it at West Ham because of that injury. And then he came back into the team, and then I thought he looked good in some games. He looked crap in some, but he looked good in some. But then this season, it feels like the centre-back partnership's always been a little bit inconsistent, and he's gone away to African nations. There's been injuries involved. And I just think it's been there's been a lot of hiccups since he's been at West Ham. I think all of it contributes to not a smooth journey. Sometimes it can be a staggering difference of signing a player who goes straight into your team and stays in it compared to one that has the amount of upsets that Aguerd has. It has been a poor signing, so I do think he needs to move on. I think Zuma will be here next season, regardless of what we all think or want. I think he's here. I think Mavropanos is here. Aguerd will go. Ogbonna, I hope, does go. And if we're not in European football, I think we need one more centre-back, one senior centre-back, plus hopefully have someone like Casey able to step up and fill in if required. The only problem is having 3 senior centre-backs is when one of them is Kurt Zuma, you have to assume and expect he's going to be injured for a period of time. So that does carry a risk. But there has to be a pathway for the younger centre-backs. And like I said, if you don't have European football and you've got 4 senior centre-backs, it's very difficult for a young centre-back to get a sniff at West Ham. So I think we only need to sign 1 centre-back if we don't have European football this summer, because I think Zuma and Mavropanos will be here, Aguerd will be off, and that's quite a hefty sum of money to reinvest into the squad, and you should be able to replace Aguerd for 20-25 million.
And there you go. Well, thank you very much for that final question there, Jimmy. But I'll tell you what is clear is that we're going to have to make this decision late, it seems, because we don't know what's happening next season, not just in terms of what competition we're going to be in. We don't even know who the manager is going to be. It's a certain suggestion we don't know what the composition of the ownership of the club is going to be. But this will just be the latest in a long line of times where we've probably entered a transfer window later and a bit of a disadvantage. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. We'll catch up with you in a couple of days. Thanks for all your questions.